When large jobs require moving massive amounts of snow, get the work done quickly and efficiently with the Western Pile Driver and all-new Pile Driver XL pusher plows, both featuring Trace Edge technology. These pushers scrape down to the pavement with an advanced cutting-edge system that has independent 2-foot sections that move vertically, oscillate, and trip. Get more jobs done faster with the Western Pile Driver lineup of pusher plows.
Welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey with your host, Dave Westcott. The Entrepreneurial Journey is a weekly podcast that streams live every Tuesday at 9:15 a.m. Pacific on Dave's YouTube channel and LinkedIn profile. Now here's Dave with this week's episode.
Good morning and welcome to the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, and I have with me this morning special guest Robert Feldman, founder of Wildfire Insurance Services. Robert, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you doing today?
It's an awesome day. Hey, it's a beautiful day out. The weather's actually holding up pretty well, and so I can't complain, as I would say.
Well, that's good. I don't like to complain about anything. I like to be positive and happy all of the time. There's too many good things to complain.
Exactly. Well, especially with the fire season amongst us, we're kind of busy at this moment. It gets pretty interesting.
So you are in California.
That is correct. So we are a wholesale entity. So different than most on this side, we have a wholesale entity that allows us. We have 3 different lanes that we play in. And long story short, we're able to do some pretty incredible things to change the narrative when it comes to insurance.
That's pretty cool. So fire is just huge in California. I mean, or at least what I see on the news. I don't know the reality of what it is, but it's always like, oh my God, we're worried about the fires. We're worried about the fires. They have devastating fires down there. It seems like insurance for fire I'm guessing in parts of California are really, really critical to your home.
Yep. Well, and obviously, as we talk about, I'm a speaker for the California Association of Realtors, and that is something that is really a difference and change. We talk about the largest asset most people will ever have is their home. And so when you have a home that can't get insurance, it makes it a major problem. And so what happens that we have to do is we need to really talk about how do we protect, and that's coming with fire hardening. That is a situation where we talk about a lot of the different things that need to change in order to be able to defend. And that's what we really do. So as a Wiles Insurance, we are a full wholesale MGA. We have over 3,000 brokers appointed with us, and we have programs that are in the Western United States. And so what happens is the fact that we are bringing programs and changes to not just California, but almost every other community in the Western United States. Places like state of Nevada are having problems, Oregon, Washington, other areas are really having problems with regard to getting insurance. And so what happens is the fact that we need to make sure we continue to make the change. Fire hardening is the biggest part.
And what is fire hardening?
Fire hardening is actually a way of making the defense of the house, make it not burn. So here's a really interesting stat that we talk about. So in the situation of fire hardening is when you look at houses that were built in the 50s and 60s and 70s, which a lot of homes are. I mean, granted, there are a lot of new homes that are doing so. But right now, what happens is you have a situation where you have homes that have what's called open exposed eaves. That's the overhang where it's open exposed.
Okay.
They have the vents that are not cleared, meaning the attic vents, and just simple 0 to 5 feet of clearance. If you have 0 to 5 feet of clearance, what ends up happening is you're in a situation where you can aggressively change. The IBHS has a really interesting stat that says that if you have just those 3 things done, you are 73% more likely to survive a fire. Think about how scary that is.
Okay.
As bad as the Palisades fire was, 73%.
So IBHS, what is that?
It's a lot of jargon for the insurance business. It's about house safety. So it's the Insurance Institute on studies
Okay.
on firestones. Yeah.
Okay. So when we're talking about a house and we're making it defensible, and just so that we understand, when we talk about something like 0 to 5 feet of clearance, is this
Around
5
the house.
feet of clearance around the perimeter? So you're talking about
Got it.
bushes, shrubs,
Got it.
um, you're talking about trees. Are you talking about HVAC systems? Are you talking about patio furniture? What are you talking
No,
about?
just really combustible items, mostly vegetation. So right now there are great companies out there like Mighty Fire Breakers that has mulch that is not only non-combustible, that actually helps put fires out. It's to do things that make things not burn. The old original windows versus, now tempered glass makes a humongous difference. These are all things. So what the industry has been dying from, and why there's so many non-renewals across California and the Western United States, is that there's a couple things that really nailed all the industry. And this is what's happened really in the Palisades fire and the Eaton fire and every fire prior to it. What I would say is, joking around, I've been doing this for 28 years coming up on, and 28 years I've watched every major fire, and I watch what homes survive and which ones don't. And what comes down to is how the structures are built, how the defensible space is built, and things of that nature. And by doing so, how there's such great technology out there that's now making homes defensible. But the scary thing about a catastrophe fire is, when you really think about it, it's really brought up in three parts. So you have three parts that create a catastrophe fire. One, you can't change. I don't care how great we are. We can't affect 70 and 80 mile an hour winds. When you have 70 to 80 mile an hour winds, we are what we are. But you can affect the other two parts. The other two parts is a community part of this. The Palisades fire is a great example of this. Most people don't know the fire broke out, that are not familiar with the area, broke out near the Getty. The big museum is the big landmark.
Okay.
The wind was going 70 to 80 miles an hour, blew it through wilderness area, and the wilderness area had a 5 mile sprint, a rolling fireball that rolled into the Palisades. None of this vegetation had been mitigated in 30 years. So you had all this overgrown brush and mitigation. So think about a tumbleweed almost effect, where the fire kept burning, the wind was blowing it hotter and hotter, and it rolled all the way into the 5 mile sprint into the Palisades.
Wow.
You can't defend homes when you have that. So at the same time, what happens is you can have the third part of it is the home defense. A lot of the homes that were lost in the Palisades were lost for one reason only. They were lost due to the fact that they did not have the 0 to 5 clearance, and they had vegetation, palm trees, cypress trees, too close to the house that were catching fire. There's a terrible video. If anyone listening wants to watch, go on to Google. There's a cypress tree that was too close to the house. The wind was blowing 80 miles an hour, 70, 80 miles an hour gusts. It bent the cypress tree, straight up, bent it over, punched a hole through one of the windows, then caught fire. It looks like a flamethrower. It took out 5 of the homes before the fire department could react.
Wow.
These are simple concepts, simple things, because, in the grand scheme of things, when we talk about insurance, I'm sorry to say I've been in every major fire where clients have lost their homes. Right now, if you and I are sitting there doing this podcast, and God forbid we lost our homes right now, think about, you have a vest on right now, right?
Yep.
You have a shirt.
Yep.
You don't have another pair of shoes. You don't have a plate to eat on tonight, or a pillow to put your head on to sleep. And all that memorabilia sitting behind you, that's important. That's a cool picture, by the way, behind you off your right shoulder.
Yeah, thank you.
I would make a joke to you and say, that's gone. You don't have those things. So no matter how great the insurance is, it never gets you back the things that you truly miss. And that's the hardest part of a fire when I work with consumers. When this fire broke out, we were immediately speaking with 3 major realty chains to help get the word out. We created 5 steps to recovery to help people deal with the California Fair Plan in a bunch of different ways. We helped somewhere between 300 to 500 families between the 2 fires that weren't even clients through brokers,
Wow.
just trying to get people to the right spots. I'm sorry to say these things happen, but it's making sure you do things the right way to try to keep these from happening in the future, which is going to be really the change in the industry, and we're affecting that change.
What's interesting is I have a home in Texas, and
Hmm.
my home in Texas, my mortgage payment is $5,500 a month. My insurance payment is now $4,600 a month.
Yeah, you're dealing with your hail. So every part, it's kind of interesting, yeah, breakout when you think about it. California and the Western United States deals with fire. You deal with it along with Texas, along with the middle deals with the wind, hail
Yep.
potential elements. Southeast deals with hurricanes. What's interesting is you're starting to see places like North Carolina and some of the mid-south that are dealing with fire. And in the Northeast, they deal with the terrible storm. So everyone has different perils, different things that are causing the industry to change. And there's a lot of things that need to be taken forward. Technology are really the evolution of how homes are being built. Like I know there are companies right now in Texas that are trying to build a roof that can withstand a hailstorm. Why your premium is $4,600 a month without even talking about what city you're in is based on your hail.
Yeah.
The hail that you have, softball size hail that comes and destroys roofs, and they're replacing roofs every 2 or 3 years. You can't be functional. I say this once, say 1,000 times over. Insurance is a business like no everyone other kind of business. If they lose money, insurance companies do, they either stop doing it like all businesses do, or they have to raise their costs.
Hmm.
So the only way to fix these things, much like what Mighty Firebreak has done, is to build out systems or build out things that make homes don't burn. Well, in your case, you got to build a roof that doesn't break from a hailstorm.
That's
I mean,
right.
I'm just saying that's the change. That's the change.
Yeah,
That's the change.
that's true. So you guys, you've been in business, you've been doing this for a long time, 25 years. Your specialty insurance is in fire zones or hard to place risks.
Yep.
So what do you do, or what do you do different than anybody else out there? Or, you said you work with, I believe I got the note right. There's 3,000 brokers that,
Hmm.
currently carry the coverages that you guys have. What do you
Yep.
guys do that's different than maybe any other brokers, or how are you doing things, different to protect those homeowners? One, also to make money as a company, I would guess, because like you said, it's a business, and if business doesn't work, then we're not going to do it, right? So I guess what do you guys do different?
Well, what happens is really is like we mentioned about is the fire hardening.
Okay.
So what we're doing is we work with we have 3 parts of us. We have a wholesaling entity. We have a London syndicate, meaning that's the Lloyd's of London programs, and we have our WOWs program. All 3 of those all require the same things. It's fire hardening. Even the wholesale entity, we work with incredible companies. There's a great company that a lot of people don't know on the West Coast, a company called Stand, like you're standing up. They're spectacular. And what happens is they are probably, along with a company called Delos, are the 2 companies that are really science-based. Stand is probably the one that does they so incredible. They even have 3D modeling now that takes the house into consideration along with every tree, all your vegetation, and then they run scenarios showing based on fires and based on wind patterns, how would your house withstand a fire? And they run different scenarios. Well, by simply fire hardening your house, removing some of the vegetation, updating windows, closing vents, closing eaves, 0 to 5 feet, you can take really, if you have a given risk. So I'll use a terrible analogy. If you have a total insurance value of 5 million, that's all in, right? Well, you could have that risk could be as much as 1% right now. That's $50,000. That's a 3,000 square foot house. This is where you're talking about that 4,000 per month situation, right? But if I can take away 73% of the risk, then you can force down insurance rates. So now it's not a 1% rate any longer because of the fire hardening. Maybe now it's a 0.5%. Now it's 25,000. Or maybe it's a 0.25%. Now it's 12,000 in that example.
Hmm.
That's the difference. Well, what we do, we stress completely over the fire hardening. And by doing so, we've been able to show not just work with as a wholesaling entity within, but we secured recently over $100 billion of capacity for the Western United States based on this concept.
And this opens up business for a lot of other trades too. Like you mentioned, windows. Replacing windows is not a cheap thing, but you get those windows put in. Well, that provides jobs for the windows guys. That's a good thing. And then I got to imagine the landscapers love this because I mean I can't think of a home that doesn't have landscaping around the perimeter with trees. I mean, I'm thinking of my own home, and I'm thinking, gosh, I would lose like 90% of what it looks like today. So like there's got to be a lot in there for, these other landscape designers, businesses, these carpenters that are, sealing in these eaves and all of these different things to really make a home hardened. When architects go to work and they design a home and they build a home, are they taking things like this hardening into consideration, or are they just taking it into consideration?
Absolutely.
So that's something that happens. Does that happen just in
It's
California or everywhere?
Well, it's getting to be more and more. California right now has a requirement with regard to fire hardening requirements, which has been a great step. They continue to update things, and a lot of the other states in the Western United States are following suit. But I'm on a lot of different calls for a lot of different things. I talk about the realtor associations that I speak for. I talk about, being on for Core Logic. It's called Cotality now. They're a modeling system of, fire scores. All these things help work with, and I speak at a lot of different events because I'm constantly getting information out, because this isn't a one person thing. We're trying to drive a change in an entire industry of not just insurance, but to your point, how houses are built. What are the regulatory situations? What are we doing from a community aspect? Because again, as I mentioned to you earlier, the two things that are the dangerous things are area. People laugh at me all the time. There's great companies. There's a company called BurnBot, okay, that looks like little mini Teslas that take out the vegetation and burn. But everything from that to, if you want to be truly nature friendly, there's a whole industry coming in, that the goats of the world. I'm going to say it a million times. People laugh at me when I say this, but the goat farmers that have the goats that eat the vegetation away, this is going to become more and more important. You've got to mitigate. People don't realize the topography of California is a really great example of this. Hundreds of years ago, when the Indians were here, and they would go from one camp to the other camp, do you know what they did? They lit everything on fire. The Chumash Indians, if you really read into, the reason for is the topography of California and the Western United States. The native plants, most of them do not even send out seedlings unless there's a certain fire level of heat to replenish.
Wow.
So a lot of what's going on is just the change. When you look at, there's areas of California, I look at the pictures from like you see the pictures from the early 1900s, 1910, 1920, and you see none of the vegetation you see today. Why? Because one, we imported vegetation like Italian cypress and eucalyptus and all these things that were brought in. One, two, they would have fires and they would burn out areas and things would revitalize and get better. So you have two choices. You can either continue to go down this road where insurance companies go bankrupt and continue and charge higher rates, or you can look at trying to fix the system. And that's what we're doing at WOWs. We are leading the tip to fix the system.
That's awesome. You guys are doing a great job.
During the Palisades fire, so we built our program for the WOWs. That's the third part of us, the WOWs program.
Yep.
Which is kind of funny. We've done so well that the London syndicates, the Lloyd syndicates, have kind of put our WOWs program on the shelf temporarily because we keep bringing more and more capacity in. But we built everything out prior to. So the year prior, we have to do what's called an actuarial and feasibility studies.
Okay.
So we built out portfolios. Here's the scary thing: after the January 7th fire, We had a 4% loss ratio.
Wow.
We say wows, by the way.
Wows. That's fantastic.
Exactly.
Wows. I love it.
Sorry, bad joke, my friend. Bad joke. I
No,
couldn't help
no,
it.
it's good.
But
We got to have fun. We got to have fun on the show.
you got to have fun, man. I got to make sure everyone's awake when they're listening on that, because, man, I know we can get in trouble. Either I got to make a joke here or there, or I got to talk about barbecue, or that's one of the two things.
You know what? As long as we have a good time, that's all that matters.
Exactly it. And for all the listeners out there, please go with us on this, because this is all really important for you out there. I keep saying.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've put this program together. You've got it. It sounds amazing. 4% loss reduction. Ratio, 4% loss ratio. When you're looking at this, I got to ask, what are, like, we talk about the fires, and I know that the fires are good, and I know that, a fire replenishes the forest, and I'm a big believer in all of that. But when that happens, today's fires, when we see these things happening, what is the root cause of the fire? I mean, you see, Smokey the Bear that says, don't light forest fires, whatever he says. Yep. And then, you've got people who are throwing cigarettes out on the side of the freeway, and boom, things are going up. Are these fires that are happening, are these, natural fires where the underbrush has grown up so much that it's just created this opportunity for lightning blaze of fire, or is a lot of this stuff just based on careless human activity, or is it kind of a combination?
Combination. Now, a really interesting study that just happened, they're in the process of doing it. I'd mentioned to you a great company called Mighty Fire Break. They have a product called Citron, which is a only EPA-friendly chemical. So, like, right when everyone sees in the fires, they see the pink stuff that's dropped, that's called Phosphatic. Very toxic, very not good for things, but it knocks out fires. They built a product that actually is safe for the environment, safe for animals. Your dogs won't end up with 5 legs, that kind of stuff. And so what happens is, recently, over the last year, and by the way, I have no ties to them. I just talk about industry specific stuff, just that I see. The county of San Diego brought them in because they were dealing with the homeless population problem and how fires were starting, and really the human error factor. So basically what they did was they contracted with Mighty Fire Break to spray this chemical during fire season throughout San Diego County. Okay. They were dealing with multiple, they were talking 50, 60, 70 fires a year that they were dealing with in San Diego, most of them small. They didn't have one. Moment this was sprayed, once they started doing mitigation, they eliminated. Well, think about that for a second. Even the homeless encampments, they have pictures that show a situation where a tent, like a homeless person's tent, burned, but you can see the outline of the tent, and nothing else burned because they had hit the chemicals throughout. So when the homeless person did this, nothing burned except the tent.
Wow.
Well, that would have been a fire, as an example, that could have started a major fire that could have burned a lot of San Diego County. So These are all things that we have to take into consideration. Again, insurance companies, listen, I'm always in the middle of the thing. People gas me, and people want to paint the insurance companies as the evil empire, and I'm not, and there are people that represent insurance try to say they're innocent. Really, what they are is a business. And they will attack each other if you can create that situation of competition. Well, if you can make areas not burn, that's the way you in the California and the Western United States, that's how you drive rates down. Because when they can make money, they cannibalize each other. And that's what you want to have happen. That's what we're driving right now.
Right.
We're driving that very thing.
That's awesome. That's great. I love to hear that. I love to hear that we're getting competitive on the rates. It's a good thing. I've heard
we're going to continue to fight it.
That's great. You guys are doing a great job. It's very impressive. Now, I've heard that, in insurance, that one of the things that also increases the cost of insurance is all the litigation. So, you get these litigation specialists, and they learn how to get these loopholes, and then they take these insurance companies to court, and for things that are, really just kind of scandalous, like I'll say, I know that this isn't in fire, but it's the exact opposite. But like wind-driven rain claims, well, like in Washington, you hear a lot about these wind-driven rain claims where
Mhm.
they didn't exclude that in the farmers or the Allstate policy, and now because it rained and they didn't specifically say we exclude wind-driven rain, these condo complexes go in and they sue these insurance companies for millions of dollars and get them to reclad the buildings for something that's just, something they didn't think about or some exclusion that they didn't put in there. And because the states allow such intense litigation against insurance companies raise the rates, and they don't want to do insurance because they're basically being attacked not only from all of the things that we've discussed today, but they're also getting hit and beat up on things that are really kind of unfair, and the government is not really sticking up for them, or they're allowing these loose loopholes to really take advantage of the insurance companies. Insurance companies are paying out millions of dollars that maybe they shouldn't have. Is that an accurate portrayal? Am I off on that? And what can be done about that?
Well, what happens is there's always a balancing act, is what I always say on this. There's
Okay.
a balancing act. Do those events occur? Yes, those events occur. What happens though at the same time is, and I kind of shake my head. Any risk can be quantified for a premium. So what I always say to people is, if you're going to, as a state, allow that to happen, meaning allow those exemptions, then at the same time, those are the same groups that are absolutely hammering the government. Why are they allowing the insurance companies to raise rates? You can't have it both ways.
Right.
If you take in $1 as a company and you're paying $2 out in claims, you go bankrupt. If you take $1 in and you're paying out 98 cents, you're making a profit. And so what happens is this is a constant balancing act. But again, if you look in most states, without getting into all the politics of this, what's the strongest lobby group in almost any state? It's the bar.
Yep.
The bar is the most. It has the most money. It pays the most amount of things. When it comes to things. So I've always kind of stayed out of this kind of an arena, but I will comment about the fact that there are a lot of states, in not just California, that need to do reform because again, realize insurance companies don't lose money. When they lose money, they raise rates or they leave.
Okay.
And that's the biggest thing that I can ever say or talk about.
I understand. So let me ask you one more thing. So as we're talking about insurance, you're familiar with the company Xactimate.
That sounds. I'll be honest with you. I haven't run across them a ton, but go ahead.
So Xactimate. So when a claim comes in, insurance companies, they want to see the build back proposal or the mitigation proposal in one of these insurance friendly, softwares like Xactimate. So I work in construction.
There's a lot of software, so
okay.
Yeah, so a lot of different ones. That's why I'm always careful to make sure.
Yeah,
I had a feeling you were talking about a rebuild cost, but I wanted to make sure that was what it was.
So we get into the rebuild cost, and because that's a big cost of the fire. Like you get into the fire, you're going to rebuild it, or you get in the fire damage, or whatever it is. There's this Xactimate quote that goes back to the insurance company. The insurance company looks at it and they say, okay, great. If it's not in the Xactimate form, we don't want to accept it, or whatever they do, but they want to see it on this form. And so you look at something like Xactimate, and my experience in 20 plus years of construction is anytime I'm looking at an Xactimate quote, I can reduce that spend by 60 to 75%. So if I go give a bid to an insurance company for anything, it doesn't matter if it's fire, water, hail, whatever, I know that if they've approved an Xactimate quote, I can literally get that work done for 25% of what they are quoting. Now, as I think about insurance, it seems to me that insurance companies are paying way more for construction services, for build back services, for mitigation services than they ever should, at least from what I can see. And they could reduce a lot of these expenses by, maybe going away with these types of programs, or what do you think about that? Is that
Well,
something
the
that comes
problem
in?
is the insurance companies are kind of in a really tough spot when it comes to claims, because when they receive bids or systems, they can't. It's a really difficult, due to regulatory, especially in California. You really got to have definitive proof. So an example, obviously, what you're saying right there is that if a contractor can reduce it by 70 or 80%, but receives the money, that's considered fraud.
Mm-hmm.
You're never going to see. I can't even remember a case of where there was a fraud case that came into play. Just because what happens is, but again, do I believe? Is it my opinion that there's been a lot of egregious, overvaluations? Absolutely. I make a joke a lot of times, brother, doing insurance as long as I have. There was a crossroads when I was in high school and college about being a contractor. And as
Mm-hmm.
well as I do, and the other things in California, when you have rebuild costs that are now as it's a lot of areas over 1,000 a square foot, and you're approaching towards 1,500 to 2,000 a square foot, there's definite times that it make me shake my head wondering, boy, if I'm in the right business, if I would have been better to be a contractor.
Yeah.
Okay. But at the same time, one of the big things that people don't realize, and this is really the truth, the industry is struggling really on two parts of this. So there's this is a thing that's a newer concept. You would have a kitchen fire. If you had a kitchen fire, let's just say the price was X for the replacement cost
Sure.
of that house. But when you lose 6,000 homes in an area, that might be 50% X on top of X. It might be 70% on top of X.
Hmm.
So the problem is the industry is struggling right now because when you have catastrophes, I call it a shock loss. There's a shock loss. Think about it for yourself as in construction. If all of a sudden, if you're going up against 4 other builders,
Yep.
okay,
Yep.
you guys are fighting it out. Turn it around the opposite way, the normal supply and demand. Now it's not you against 3 builders. You've got 10 homeowners talking to just you, begging to get in front of to
Hmm.
get their houses rebuilt. What happens to the industry? What happens to rebuild costs?
Well, I'm going to
You
take
know,
care of the one who pays the most.
it's the truth. And that's going to be a bid. Contractors, to your point, are bidding things. I think the systems reflect that. And again, this goes back to the really primary problem of the industry again is every time a dollar is paid in claims,
Mm-hmm.
it's basically baked into the industry as to what the future cost of insurance will be.
Yeah.
So every time there's fraud, every time the way it works in California right now, if the restoration companies specifically, if you're making an accusation about a restoration company, you better have dead to rights fraud, because there's punitive damages for insurance companies. So
Hmm.
the insurance companies shy away from it. But I have a great example of the Altadena fire. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Altadena fire that happened on January
Yep.
7th also. Speaking in front of a lot of the families that lost their homes, there was a really great pastor that's there. Didn't lose his home, but boy, it was right on top of it. I mean, like everyone around him basically did. He asked me for help. I came and spoke in front of his congregation. And long story short, I was helping the family and helping the wife that was going through this. And they contacted and they asked for a company to come out and clean out the heating and air conditioning vents throughout the entire house. It sounds great. You should definitely do that. Get the smoke out of there so you can get it
Sure.
starting to be able to run. As you and I both know, air conditioning, if you run air conditioning, change your filters, it'll help a lot of this. But to get it really cleaned out, this house needed it. So they get a bid for $1,200. The company comes out and cleans it all out, does everything. 4 days after it's cleaned out, the restoration company finally gets time to come in and see it from the claim standpoint, right? Restoration company comes out, and I kind of made a joke with this couple, this pastor. Don't tell them that you had the vents cleaned. Don't tell the restoration company the vents clean. Let them come out and do their survey, and let's see what they do. So they do a full survey showing all the things that need to be done, including the vents being cleaned out. Now, mind you, they were cleaned out 3 days prior to. I mean, I looked at it myself. You could, it's the eat off the floor. You could eat
Yeah.
off the vents. Okay,
Yeah.
cleaned out. And it wasn't $1,200, by the way. When we got the breakdown of what the restoration company wanted, they wanted $4,800 to do the same work that the other company already did for $1,200, even though the work was already done and it
Yeah.
wasn't
That's why I
necessary.
hate those companies. But
There's some good companies out there. like like there's a great company we deal with in Los Angeles, Allied Restoration. I think they do a damn good job. They pretty stand up and forward on stuff, and they actually do fire hardening, which I like about them also. They have a great program on defending homes. Is part of the reason why I like them so much. But what I would say though again is, and I'm going to say it, and I know I'm being mindful of time here, but I want to make sure I say, again, I'm sorry for going around and around the same thing. When you have a situation where insurance companies pay out money and it's advantage taking advantage of the system,
Yeah.
that affects everybody at large,
Yep.
whether it's non-renewals or whether it's rate increases.
Yep.
Going back to your $4,600 a month.
What is it that you guys, the message that you were sharing today, everything that you've done, what is it? What is the message that you were getting to the audience? What is what do you want them to know, and how do they participate?
For those that are it doesn't matter where you are in the United States. As I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, every part of this nation has different perils that are a problem. But now, for those that are in the Western United States that we deal with, fire hardening is the number one thing. It's if you don't understand it, there's great resources like Cal Fire has Lean, Clean, and Green. If you go to their websites, there's all kinds of information out there about hardening your house. That's to make your house defensible so it doesn't burn. Everyone needs to realize, whether they like this or not, this is the change. This is going to be not just, I get consumers will say, well, do I get a discount for doing so? I kind of smile all the time and say, no, but the great news is you'll get an insurance policy. And we possibly get an insurance policy that declines over time. So maybe it's not a discount per se, but it doesn't matter how great the insurance is. If your house burns to the ground, it goes back to the original joke. I don't have my Letterman jacket from when I was in high school that I love that sits in my closet. It's gone. Pictures and things. Doesn't matter how great the insurance is, you'll never get back whole because of memorabilia. So the big takeaway everyone out there needs to listen to is about fire hardening and fixing your home to make it non-combustible. And I challenge everybody listening. Listen, my email is very straightforward and simple. I give it to everybody. It's Robert@WOWS, WOWS, insurance.com. If anyone out there needs help, we can get to the right spot or help them directly. We have a lot of brokers that work for us, but I do a lot of community events. So anyone listening out there wants me out there for a community event or talking about these things, very powerful. I had the fun one not too long ago where I was below the Hollywood sign, and I did it right below the Hollywood sign. So that was kind of a community event, which is a fire zone. So I get a lot of those throughout California and the Western United States. So it works out pretty good.
Are you guys on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn?
Yep, I am on LinkedIn. You can look me up, Robert Feldman at WOWS. Instagram, we did a really fun one. I mentioned a little bit about barbecue.
Yep.
I have my daughter, who's absolutely incredible, created an Instagram for me. It's a barbecue one, but the realtors all follow. A lot of consumers follow. If you go on to Bob, so BOB, period, B as in barbecue, period, QUE. So right. Bob, period, B, period, QUE. It's a great play. Both of those are great sources. It has tons of information on there. And if we can ever be of help, we want to make sure, because again, this only works. We only make this change and fix this if we're all hands on deck. Everyone needs to be involved.
Yeah, I love that. You guys are doing an amazing job. All right, my final question. You've been so generous with your time. We've got a big billboard on the side of the road. You got one phrase, one sentence, one word to leave with the audience. What would you leave?
Know what fire hardening is.
And if you listen to this show, you are going to know what fire hardening is. We got 3 things: eaves, vents, and 0 to 5 around the house.
Got it.
I'm going to be redoing my whole thing.
Exactly, but you got to go different. You got to make yourself a little bit better on the hail side, and I still haven't looked at the technology of that. I still think that's the bigger fight for you at this point.
I think the fight there might be just move.
Yeah, well, the problem is, doesn't matter. Like we said earlier, doesn't matter where you move. There's always going to be a problem. So we just got to figure out which.
That's right. That's right. There's always something to fight. There's always something to overcome in life. Listen, exactly. Robert, this has been a great show. You've been so educational. You're so smart at what you deliver. It's just so impressive, everything that you guys have built and the way that you've worked with people and helped them. I love the analogy that you shared about the company and the vents and the pastor and all of that. That was great information, and everything that you really put together with what you guys are doing and the 3 lines. that you guys work with. So just a very great show, very great information. Thank you very much for everything you shared today.
Thank you. The honor's mine. And anytime you need me back, just let me know. We'd love to come back and keep going into more and more stuff for you. So anytime you need anything, just let me know.
You got it, my friend. This has been the Entrepreneurial Journey. I'm your host, Dave Westcott, 9:15 a.m. Pacific Standard Time every Tuesday. We are live and having fun. If you like this show, give us a like, give us a share, drop your comments into the comment box, and hit Robert and his team up. Send them an email. Follow them on LinkedIn. Follow them on Instagram. Get with them and focus on this fire hardening. These are great guys to work with. Absolutely incredible team over there at Wow's Fire Insurance Services. Great guys to partner with. Robert, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
Introducing the all-new Western Enforcer V-Plow. Engineered with all the features, efficiency, and performance of full-size Western V-Plows, built specifically for your half-ton truck. For more information, visit westernplows.com.